Dry intro, everybody. No intro. Dry and no intro. But I am using new software, so I have an excuse. But yeah, this is good company. This is the show where I bring people on and talk about random, awesome stuff. We today are going to be doing a couple different things. I'm hoping that my mic is even set. Okay. Hopefully, my mic just switched to something that sounded decent. Because again, like I said, I'm trying new software, and yeah, it didn't seem like it connected. But hopefully, I'm sounding better right now. We're going to be doing a good company episode with Joe Sonntag today. I'm excited because we haven't talked in a long time, and also because we're similar in the way that we're both writer, artists, creators. And generally, those type of people think not all the same, but like at least we share uh, kind of some of the same motivations. So I'm hoping that lines up a little bit. But generally, with the show, I'm ending up with different questions. I write a bunch of questions down. I'm trying to get questions that are actually interesting, rather than some of the more redundant ones that you see on shows. Um, but let me look at this chat real quick. No one's here. However, I didn't really. I'm working on two different things, trying to make sure that it actually does well audio wise, and also that it streams to Twitter this time. I streamed to Twitter last time on Wednesday, and it worked out well. However, things were a little bit different. Totally different people showed up to the stream, new faces, not like the regulars. I don't know what was going on. Anyway, let's get Joe in here. That way we can get this conversation rolling on this Sunday. What's going on, Joe?
What's going on, Joe? How's it going?
Dude, I rarely hear my name said back to me in such a a good way.
I
I
know it's
recently
odd, right?
rebranded. It's weird. But it's even weirder because I recently rebranded my channel to Good Joe. It's almost like this
Yes.
weird, it's a weird it's a weird thing. I After I put up my first book, and maybe this is one thing I want to dive into a little bit, presented in a different way. But after I put out my first book, and you're in the process of,
Yeah.
I had like a lull. I hit like some sort of lull imposter syndrome type of depression. I was like, man, I like maybe I was at such a high from getting it all going and getting it ready and everything else, that afterward I was like, man, this is feeling weird. Like there's too many expectations or something.
Oh,
Either way, I started associating everything I did with like being good, and so I decided to rebrand and just own it. Um, but yeah, let's see what we got here. Juan Carlos, what's going on, dude? Glad you are joining us. You are one of
hello.
the new names that came by on Wednesday this past week, so
Oh,
I'm
so
glad you're
you're
here.
you're streaming
Yeah,
to Twitter X now, huh?
I tried both. I'm streaming to both.
Interesting.
It kind of worked, so I'm trying it again. Like I said, in the back room, I said I'm using Firefox now,
Yeah.
and that's only because of the audio issues. And I guess I don't understand why the browser separates things out, but if it's set up in whatever else if you're set up in Google Chrome, all your settings don't carry over if you open it up in Firefox, which is
Oh, I
really
can see
weird.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's super weird. I didn't expect that, so I apologize for the bad audio intro. I actually have an intro that I'm working on, and it's a badass, like really well vibed intro for this interview series. But I'm like missing one clip, and it hasn't worked out to get it out for this show. But next week, I'm going to have it ready. But I think what's derived from this intro, and you'll see why when you see it maybe down the road on a replay or something. It's pretty much. I don't know if you remember this one thing in Fight Club, where when they first start Fight Club, Brad Pitt asks himself, essentially, because we know the movie,
Yeah.
uh, like, have you ever been in a fight? And he says no, but that's a good thing. And he's like, no, can you even know yourself if you've never been into a fight? And it brought something to mind. I was like, I something most people don't ask each other. Have you ever been in a fight, Joe? Is there like a secret fight that you don't tell people about, or a street fight, or in a ring or something?
I've done pretty good throughout my life to walk away from a lot of issues because I mean, there's so many things that can go wrong in a fight, especially nowadays. I mean, you see videos all over the Twitter now of just things going wrong in fights. I ultimately, unless you are defending yourself or defending others, I don't get into fights over anger. That being said, there were times in my youth where I would get into altercations, but nothing that I would say rose to the level of like, what you would consider like, like a movie fight, a knockdown drag out fight, like pushing, shoving, a couple, punches thrown here or there, and then things get separated, by friends or whatnot. So I don't really have a really good story. I was in a near bar fight, but that was probably the closest I could say came to anything, and that escalated real fast, but then also ended real fast, I guess you could say. So
Yeah, I gotta ask some stats on that. But first, welcome Amanda B. I know we
hey,
signaled to
darling.
her in a second ago, but yeah, I'm stopping to say hello. Cat Panel, Durst, Joe, Squared. Yes, we are squared today. And then Nefarious comes in here and brings up the
Hail.
dichotomy. I'm good, Joe, evil Joe. You definitely have a darker
Yes.
vibe over there. You look like
It does look like that, doesn't it? I'll take it. I'll take it.
I know. I'll take it too. I'll man up the good side here. But he says Catabell wants to fight Sonntag because there can be only one
that
Highlander style.
that might
That
be.
could be true.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that happening now. Too many Joes. There can
That's
only
right.
be
There's a lot of them
one
out
good
there.
one.
So yeah, I agree. I've been always in. I think I want to ask this like pretty much like how tall are you essentially dealing with the fight? Are you a big guy? Are you intimidated by bigger crowds or getting in people's face or people getting in your face?
It just all depends on the situation. Like I mean, size wise, I'm 5'11". When I was a little bit slimmer, I was around 180. Now I'm around like 210. Became a
Right,
dad, got the dad bod thing going on.
right.
But when I was in my youth, it just all depends. Like I got a short fuse. I can go off if I need to, specifically if I'm defending, people.
Mhm.
If it's just me, if it's somebody insulting me or my sensibilities, it doesn't really bother me. It never really has. Like I don't get
Right.
angry at that. But if somebody that I know is getting messed around with or threatened, that usually gets me more into a fight mode because I'm just a natural protector, I guess you could say, when it comes to
Yeah,
that
that's a good
stuff.
thing.
Yeah.
And I was going to bring it up because I started martial arts really early, mostly because I was the smallest kid anywhere I went. I was like the shortest, smallest kid, and I always made friends with the bigger kids somehow, which was a good thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, that's the way you do it. But even so, I remember. I don't know how it comes about. Either I like Ninja Turtles or something, but I'm pretty sure my
Yes.
parents were like, "This kid is tiny. We got to get this kid in a position where he can defend himself or something." So ever since then, I've kind of like had this like I don't know, this like conflict type of hyper awareness where I think being that small, it sets you up to be like, I gotta be always concerned with like if I'm like alone, type
Yeah.
of thing. It's almost like how I maybe I have a better connection to how women are like when they're smaller and weaker than men, so like they have to be aware. This is here says, "What's up, Total Excellence?"
Hey.
Color Supreme is here. What? Thanks for stopping by, man. We're talking to Joe Sonntag and starting out with just if we've ever been in fights. And I don't ever, like you said, want to promote fighting because it's not a good thing. I've got a lot of experience in martial arts and different types, and it is not fun. It's not fun to be in a real one. It's not fun. I've only have a couple experiences, and it was probably the worst experiences of my life. And that's even knowing some things, and it still is like a blur of just not good times.
Well,
Just getting socked.
there's no real good outcome from getting into a fight. This one thing if you are defending yourself, like I said, if you're being bullied or somebody straight up attacks you and you have no choice but to defend yourself, then that is what it is. Then you do what you have to do in a situation. But any situation where it's just two guys or a group of people or whatever, for some odd reason, bumping chests or doing something that affects your sensibilities, like you feel like you are less of a man and you need to step up and get in this person's face, what's the outcome of it? Bragging rights maybe to your buddies if you beat the guy, or you make
Right.
excuses if you get beat by the other dude. And to me, it's just like walking away from a situation. Nobody is going to be affected in any way. And I mean, coming from, I haven't had this personally, but
Hmm.
I know of situations of people I have known, not closely, but that got in fights and somebody died because of it. And both lives obviously are changed, for the worse, because one is not here anymore, and then the other person is going to jail, and
Yeah.
all over something stupid. And so that doesn't rise to the level of like, yeah, let's do this. It's the manly thing, right? Like it's like, oh yeah,
True.
man, like we like to fight, we like to do this, blah blah blah. And I like to try to step away from that, because I've been in so many occasions where people have tried to get into fights with me for stupid
Hmm.
stuff, and I'm just like, no, it's not worth it. Regardless if it doesn't end, if it just ends in a normal fight and we get broke up, blah, it is what it is. But going
True.
going into something more than that, it's just not worth it. My life is way
Absolutely.
more important. My family's life is way more important than some a notch on my belt I could get from fighting some dude for some reason.
Yeah. It's like ego versus just being stable, or just being in a good position where you're not going to like jeopardize what you got going for your family and jeopardize everybody else around you. Like I said, I have, like I said, with my martial arts experience, it's always a defense type of rule for most martial arts. I think there's a few out there that are not that way.
Right.
However, because that's one thing you do find out, it's usually you have a big advantage if you are the first strike. Like if you're the first guy to hit, you usually have a little bit of an advantage because there's like a stun effect that happens. But besides that, you probably shouldn't do that because it's not good to. You want to use it as like a defense, and you don't ever want to like cause a fight. So you're like in this weird mix of like staying back and retreating and not provoking anything, but at the same time being aware that if he does hit you, you're at a disadvantage at that point, and less likely to win.
Well, I was
But yeah.
watching. I can't remember who I was watching, but there was some guy that was like talking about fights, and just one, how to kind of avoid a fight. You know, start keeping that distance between you and the aggressor. It's not you weren't the old adage of like being a chicken because you're not standing there, standing up, kind of thing. Throw that out the window. Don't worry about what other people are thinking in this situation. If you were trying to avoid it, start walking backwards, move around, keep distance between that person and you, keep your hands up in case they do come at you so you can, have a way to protect yourself. And then in the end, if it is a situation where it's dangerous, let's say you're getting into an altercation in the street with a stranger,
Mhm.
you don't know, especially nowadays, you don't know what people have on them. It could be a gun, it could be a knife,
Oh yeah.
whatever. There's no harm in just being like, screw this, I'm not a part of this, I'm out of here, and just take off. Just be done. It's not a chicken thing. It's
That's right.
you keep yourself safe, especially if you have a family at home, if you have kids. Why get into those situations? The only time you would
Absolutely.
ever see me fight is if somebody threatened, the safety of my wife or my kids. And in that case, that person is gonna, better watch out, man, because I will black out and I will go crazy and I will do what I have to do to protect my family. And in that instance, whatever happens, happens. And I don't consider myself a very violent man, but there's nothing more angering to me than to put my loved ones in danger. And if you did that, then it's off the table of what I would do to that person, especially if it was my daughter. I
Yeah, dude.
mean, and that's a scary thought because in my mind, I don't enter into a fight to do a fair fight or do all this kind of stuff. I'm going to enter into a fight with a thought process that I'm going to hurt you bad enough to the point where you can't hurt the person that I love, and then that's not a good thought to
Right.
have.
No, and it's out of like this primal type of survival,
Right.
and yeah, that's how it goes. It's really, I think that's why I train, is because like the if the more you're in that mindset and just training, the less that you have to have it out there. Like that like we're fragile beings. Like just an accidental slip, fall, somebody just, a really light punch to your jaw will knock you out.
Yeah,
It doesn't even, it doesn't even have to be that hard. And so like we're fragile type of beings. So like, broken
absolutely.
bones, you can really hurt yourself, hurt others. So with that in mind, like and subscribe. No, so no, my channel's growing fast, dude. It's like it's hitting like some sort of algorithmic growth recently.
Nice.
I'm like at 10x right now, which is crazy.
That's awesome.
So yeah, we're moving quick. I appreciate everybody who's stopping by these days. Ichthus says, yeah, no matter how many times you train, the outcome can go south. It's better to know how to defend yourself than be stunned and taking the hits. Very true. That's why most people train. It's also gives you a different mentality because like when you're training, you realize like, I don't like getting hit, dude. And you realize when you punch somebody else, this is exactly how you feel. This is how they feel now. A new fresh name here, Christopher Bucard.
Oh, there it is.
What's up, Joe and Joe?
What's up, brother? Good
Glad
to see you,
buddy.
Christopher.
Yeah,
Is a regular in our chat.
That's let's spread the wealth. Come over to this Joe side
Yes,
for a
sir.
moment.
Good to see you, Christopher.
Spread the Joe wealth. So comics, am I right? Dude, I mean, this is pretty much where I like to kind of, because my theory, it's not even it's not a hot take or anything, but like life influences your book. And so if I'm not like, it's kind of just me, but it's kind of dumb to always just talk art, always just talk comics, because it's our passion. We love it. But at the same time, like what's really influencing the emotions and the things that connect to your reader are the things we're talking about right now. Like, what's your view on morals in a fight? Okay, that might influence your hero. That's going to influence how like people, maybe the themes that are in the book that you take away. What do you think about like, do you have any, you have your Reaper Destroyer book is in demand still, and you're working on that. He's a darker character. Is there like a lighthearted, good moral ground to him, or is that like is it more of like a power trip book?
Yeah, he struggles with the darkness because he's got a spirit within him that's trying to possess him. So he is influenced also by the darkness of that character. And he's also in himself, Matthew, my main character. He also is a guy that's kind of a hothead. He flies off the handle. He doesn't think a lot. He's quick to engage without really kind of thinking. It's a flaw in his character, something that we're going to have to work with as he grows as a character. He does have a moral sense though, that he's not like quick to try to kill. That's not in his nature, but in the spirit's nature that's in him, Apophis, that is all that he is about. So there is this struggle when they engage in battle to, Apophis would just kill everybody if he can. Anybody they encounter, that's just what he does. And Matthew would rather just kind of fight, like you would normally do, beat the opponent, move on, kind of thing. So it's an interesting dynamic between the two, as far as that goes. There's no real like moral code like Batman, or Superman kind of thing going on with this character. So as far as that goes, it's just basically the influence, I guess, of the spirit over Matthew in the story.
Yeah. First off, hello, Jay Bodart. What's going on, dude? Glad to have you back. So I totally agree, and it brings up another story technique. I don't know if you know this one. It's used in any type of mobster movie. It's used in any type of anti-hero story. The way you make an anti-hero a hero from a viewpoint of the audience is to make the villain even worse. It's the only way to make one look, like they're doing the right thing is to make, because one guy could be, in a mobster movie could be killing just as much as the villain is. However, maybe he's doing it for more moral reasons, more for protection, less for just, maybe the villain in this case would have to like relish in it or really enjoy the killing, where the anti-hero is going to like kill and do bad things, but he's doing it for somewhat of a relatable reason. Yeah.
Yeah, I hold on to the whole thing. Like, if you got a hero, even if they are kind of an anti-hero, you probably want to have them with some kind of moral code, even if it's not a stated thing. Like with Batman's like, no kill kind of thing. We kind of all know that.
Right.
That's not really stated with my character, but it's just the human nature of who he is not to take a life. You know, it's, you know, you do what you do to survive, and you know what you have to do, but not to take a life. Whereas in the nature of the spirit, who is a spirit of death, that is his nature, is to take
Mhm.
life, to take souls and all that kind of stuff. So the kind of takeover of the host being Matt, you will see as the story progresses who gets a stronger hold on, you know, that sensibility at what point in time. You know, like does Apophis take over control of certain things in certain areas, and you have more aspects where he starts killing bad guys, whether deserved or not, or does Matt hold on to that control and not do that? You know, the interesting thing with
Mhm.
Apophis is he is a secondary main character. So Matt is the main character we follow. Apophis is like the second guy we follow. It's almost, oddly enough, within the book, I kind of call it like a buddy cop. You know, like Lethal Weapon. You know, you got Riggs and Murtaugh. You got one guy that's kind of off the handle, kind of a little nuts and crazy, and the other guy is kind of like by the book. You know, and they play off each other. It's kind of
Cool.
like that idea with these two characters, that we're always playing off each other in the story, and then the actual villain, who's a character named Vanessa, she is going to actually be, like you said, you have to have a villain that's worse than your character with flaws, you know. And this character in Vanessa is straight up an evil person, an evil villain, blood, you know, guts, loves to destroy, loves to create havoc and chaos and all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And that's all she wants to do, is create misery and death, and you know, she revels in it. So that kind of thing there's a worse thing out there than what Matt is. But I like to play with the idea of what could Matt be if he ever lost control and just let Apophis take over. You know, there's a
Hmm.
danger in that as well in the story.
Yeah, that's key because again, for relating to the character. But yeah, I dig that theme. That's a great theme because you know, there's demons in all of us, so we're all trying to like balance that. And I feel like the closer you, oddly enough, it's this backwards way. Like the closer you are to that darkness, the more you can control it a little bit. But you got to worry about the people that are like ignoring it completely. Those are the guys that just fly off the handle for no reason. Those are the guys that probably are the guys that get in a fight and when they're provoked, because they're not thinking about it at all.
Yeah.
That's how I would put it. In regards to martial arts, Juan says martial arts philosophy emphasizes on the essence of self-control, respect for others, and positive perspective to strive for the best in life. Absolutely, dude. You said it way better than I could. I'm testing for black belt in a different style like this year, and I couldn't say it that well. But I'm going to steal that for my essay if I have to write an essay. Awesome. Okay. Um, but let's see. Chris is also saying, awesome Reaper Destroyer artwork you posted a few days ago, Joe. And again, glad to see you and hope everything is well.
Thank you, brother. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Dude, he sounds like a great fan and friend.
Yeah, Christopher's awesome. Awesome. He's almost always in our chats. He's been that way for now for quite a while. So he's one of our regulars. I definitely appreciate Chris. He's also a very positive person when it comes to, you know, what we're doing as far as the channel goes, the book, and everything.
Mhm.
So I definitely appreciate him. It's good to see you, man. Good to see you here today. We appreciate
That's
that.
great. Yeah, any support, especially for indie creators like us, dude. It's like a situation because of so many we've already jumped so many hurdles to get to this point. Like to get someone past the stage of just thinking about an idea to actually writing something about it to actually finishing something to doing the art for something. It's like you're already past a million hurdles. Just getting that
Right.
far, when I talk to young people, that's just doing that far is like you're like 90%. You're already past 90% of the people that have an idea. You just beat them because you've actually done something about it. And so people that actually are there supporting you, like Chris, um, I really respect those people because, like, even I don't necessarily do that all the time. So people could go out of your way to help other people and self support. It really is appreciated by us, both the Joes here, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, we can't do
Yeah,
anything the way we do without guys like Chris, you know? And that's what's cool about it, is the people that buy our books, the people that support the shows and help us get what we get out. Like that's, you know, it's humbling when you think of guys and gals like that, but you know, just people that are there to support you financially, emotionally, all that kind of stuff. So it's it's been really cool coming out as a creator and putting your stuff out there, and then just seeing how that affects others and what they give you in return has been one of the coolest things I've experienced over the last couple years now, getting into what we do. So it's
Yeah.
always heartening seeing people jump up in the chat. I love it. I love it.
For
Just
sure. It's something that it's a metric that people don't look as a metric, and something only after just recently, like I said, my channel's doing really well and I'm seeing that as a metric. I'm seeing like numbers go up. But what I didn't realize until now, I think maybe this is I guess one of the rules of the world that you just don't realize until, in retrospect, I'm looking back on it. I think like the few people that do come around and give you the support and like talk to you about your book, that's your metric. Don't pay attention to the hundreds or missing numbers or whatever.
right.
The metric is one person cares,
Yep.
and look into that. And super cool that I know your channel's grown a lot. I've checked, I've watched it grown as time goes. You do like what's your usually stream time? 9 to 10 or later
Yeah,
than that sometimes?
around there. It's changed a little bit because like everybody streams nowadays on every channel, so there's some experimenting going on right now to try to find slots where you can kind of sneak in where somebody else isn't streaming and just test that time
Right.
slot out. But for the most part, 9:30 on Tuesdays is when we stream on Tuesdays. I think 8:30 on Wednesdays was when we stream. And some of that has to do with I have co-hosts on the show, and I try to work around all of our schedules so it works good for everybody jumping on.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta you're trying to manage a lot of different things. When I was thinking about what the things that I was going to ask you, a lot of it came into like mostly that you have a passion for this certain type of art, the certain type of book that harkens back to the 90s,
Yeah.
and they probably harkened back before that, but also tying that to like success of what you've done so far. Because you've done the crowdfund like as a legitimate crowdfund. Like when I did my book, it was almost done. It was pretty much done, and I crowdfunded. It was almost like a pre-order in that respect.
Right.
But
Yeah.
you're actually making it as your crowdfunding essentially. What can you talk about? Like, what's been the number one thing you could say that has brought you success? Not necessarily numbers, but like in people interacting with you and just getting a lot of eyes on your page and on Reaper Destroyer. What can you say is the number one thing that has helped you?
I mean, the number one thing would have to be the art. That is the universal thing that you can put out there that gets people's attention. Comic books, we're in a visual medium, and if you present something out there that looks cool, most likely somebody's going to look at that and be like, I'm interested in it. Because comic books are pleasing to the eye. Whatever it is that we have in our heads, our brains, a dopamine hit, whatever it is that when we see something that we like, it makes us want that thing. And art is absolutely like it. As a lover of art that I am, when I see a good piece of art, it doesn't matter who the name attached to it is as far as the artist goes or what it's for. I just look at it, I'm like, wow, that is really cool. I want to know more about that, or know more about the artist, or get my eyes looking at newer things of that, to fulfill whatever it is that I just experienced.
Mm-hmm.
And I pretty much have found that anytime I showed, going back to the beginning when I started showing off art for the first time of the book, I would just get I guess you'd call it fans. People that would see it and would either just be like, hey man, that's dope looking art, or like, oh, cool looking character, or this or that. Hey, what book is this from? When's it coming out?
Mm-hmm.
And that was able enough to launch enough intrigue and excitement to keep people paying attention to me personally as far as my social media goes, and the name of the book, signing up for the book, all that kind of stuff. So right off the bat, art number one. I mean, you put good art out there, it's almost like fishing. You get good bait out there, people are going to come because it's too much not to pay attention to.
I recognize that I probably really I recognize that because I'm kind of stubborn that way. For a long time I was like, I want my art to speak for me, and then I kind of relied on that too much. You don't want to, you need to like use your personality, because a lot of people like to have an artist that and a creator that has their personhood out there, and like their character showing.
That helps too.
It's part of it. Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting to see, because you do have success. You got over 1,000 backers, over 60K in funds on Indiegogo, and so those are crazy numbers for
Oh no, it's
for especially a first book. You know, there I've seen dozens and dozens and dozens of first time books that can barely hit three. Um, and so to hit, what is that? 30x sales or something is crazy. It's up there, and it's appreciative to like get your feedback on like, okay, you do think number one is art.
yeah.
Um,
It,
yeah,
and when people follow you too, I mean, like when you have channels like this, it's good that people get to know you, and a lot of times we get on these shows and we are ourselves on here unless someone's trying to throw a front. But if you are just
yeah,
yourself and people get to know you, they like you, they get to feel like they're a part of your life essentially. Like I've not met anybody in the chat that I've ever had in the chat. Maybe a couple other creators that live around here, but for the
right.
most part, I just know chat names. I know emojis, icons for the chat. But you get kind of like this friend sense from a lot of
Hmm.
people because they're in your chat all the time. You're talking, you're interacting, you're living your personal life on here. Sometimes we're talking about our passions, but we also talk about personal life on the shows and all that kind of stuff. So people get to know you. You can get to know them in the chat. And I think that
Hmm.
there's certainly a point where that comes into play where even people in the chat, besides your book, want to just support you as a person because they like you. So there is that aspect when you have a show that can't be taken for granted when it comes
Right.
to sales or backers. But for the pure aspect of comics, there is a standard out there that I myself want in a comic book, and I feel it's that way for a lot of backers out there as well, especially people that have been collecting comics for a long time that might be in their late 30s, early 40s, like I am, and you
Hmm.
come from a certain time where the artists were king. The
Right.
90s artists were king. It was art first over everything else, and if you grew up in that era, you remember the names that were just around at that time. You remember the amount of work that was being put out and just the gorgeous art that you got to feast on. And if you look at like today, you don't see a lot of that in the mainstream or anywhere for the most part. There's different styles have come up and become more popular and this or that. And I think
Absolutely. Yeah.
specifically with this book, I was marketing towards the people that like that style of art. That just happens to be my art style. And so I wanted to give people that hadn't seen that in a while. And I think I noticed the reason why I said art first is because when I started putting art out there, besides people liking it, I got DMs or comments, people like, hey, this reminds me so much of like 90s Top Cow, or like, man, I miss this kind of art style in comics so much. Like it was getting to that crowd that wasn't getting that kind of art style in their modern comics. I might have just at the right time, right moment, and right time
Hmm.
kind of thing with this book of being able to spark that kind of crowd and that kind of attention. I don't know why the book is so successful. I mean, I don't.
Interesting.
I have no analytics or metrics to be like, why did this launch so good? Why had it done so good? I have no
Yeah.
idea. And
It's
in my
hilarious.
mind, this could be a one and done thing. It might not do that the next
Hmm.
time around. So I'm just
That's
enjoying
usually not the
it.
case. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just enjoying it as
Yeah.
it is right now, and just
Right.
when it dropped, it was the right time, the right place, got the right amount of excitement for this kind of style comic book, and I'm gonna ride that, and hopefully, the book will come out when people will dig it, and they will come back for the second time around. But like, I really look at this right now as a unique thing, and hopefully that will continue. But if it doesn't, it's okay. But right now, this launch, this book, this campaign, what it's done, I just kind of look at it as a unique thing. I'm humbled by it, and I just try to keep that in mind
Right.
as we're going forward.
I keep a lot of us in indie books. It's so much cooler than the mainstream. It's like there's so much like at stake. There's like you got to think like for the big guys, they have a salary and there's like a whole chain of command and like
Yeah,
there's backup funds and like pensions and like bonuses and all this other stuff. But for indie artists, it's just like ground level.
yeah,
If you don't make it, you don't get paid. If you don't get paid, you don't eat. Like kind of
yeah.
like, and I think everybody feels it. I mean, obviously, people have side jobs and day
I
jobs
was
and all
just gonna
these
say
other
most
things.
people have jobs because of that reason.
Yeah, right. But some people, it's not everybody. Some people, I know people that like are taking the risk, and they're like, all right, like me, I'm only part time. I stopped full time. I went part time to work more art,
Right.
And it even that's a hard ask. Different things happen. The writer's strike that happened. I'm a storyboard artist on the side too, so like
Okay. Yeah.
I stopped getting jobs
Yeah.
because writer's strike. So like that came along, and you just got to roll with the punches. My point is, with indie books, it's like this cool, like the stakes, just like in a story, the stakes are higher over here. Like
Yeah.
for the mainstream comics, the stakes are not high. It's just like this is a job, and these guys are doing it for whatever reasons. They probably love doing the art, but there's nowhere near the level of investment
True.
comparatively. And yeah, I see it in your work. Like it's even better too because like we get to know you, we get to know like we see your art improving just like in any book. I'm sure by the end of the arc, your art's going to be probably night and day from page one. I think that's how it's going to be for everybody.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
yeah,
Kayla, who's one of my co-hosts on appreciating comic book art,
yeah,
said the same thing. I was talking to her the other day because her and Sean, I show like while I'm working on the book, they get to see everything I'm doing. Because it's nice to see feedback and whatnot. But
nice.
we were talking about it the other day, and I said that I was like, look, the normal person might not see it, the progression of the art within the book, but I've been working on the book for a year,
Mm-hmm.
and it's allowed me to really put my best into each page, and I can sit back as an artist and just see where I've improved, whether it's rendering or storytelling or whatever you want to say. I can see the improvement even going back and looking at the first few pages, which I'm very proud of and was very proud of at the time. But looking
Mm-hmm.
at like, from page 1 to 2 to page, 40, I'm looking at it, I'm just like, I can see the improvement in my art. And this is the most consistent I've been drawing in my entire life, because there've been times, because when you're not doing it for, professional, sometimes you
Yeah,
take time off because there's other things that pop up in life and you can't draw, so you're just like, all right, it's a hobby right now, so I'll draw when I get a chance. This is the first time I actually sat down because there's a purpose. I'm getting paid to make this book, so
uh huh,
you're sitting down, you're drawing on a regular basis, and you get to see those improvements in leaps and bounds, and it's fun, because I'm just like, this is awesome. Because as an artist, you always want to improve. If you're stagnant in your art and you never see improvement, it's just kind of like, okay, yeah, it can be good, but at the same time, what am I learning? I always want to learn something new, some new technique that I can do. A new artist that I see that does something really cool, I'm like, wow, like how can I do that and bring that into my style? Because I like how
interesting.
that rolls with their art. Like, what can I do within my
Right.
art? And that should always keep on improving you. So like the improvement from there to now is great. I want to see improvement from now till book 4. When book 4
Right.
comes out, however long that's going to be, I really want to see where I'm at that point, and just that's exciting for me. That keeps me driving. When I do a new piece like that, I'm just like, oh man, like I can see I implemented this and this and this, and it's going in a direction I like. I'm not there yet, but we're gonna get there at some point.
Yeah, you feel it in your bones. That brings
Mm-hmm.
up a side question that I like to ask artists. And again, we're going to get into the writer artist slash thing going on. I have two questions. One, are you full time drawing comics right now, or are you doing a split thing
I'm doing a split thing.
like most? Okay,
There was a couple
cool.
months where I switched jobs. I I
What are you
walked
doing?
I walked out on my old job, which I don't recommend, but that was a situation where me and the boss at the time were not clicking. I think he was trying to find reasons to fire me anyway, and we got in a big argument. I told him what I thought of him, and I thought that was definitely going to get me fired, so I just
Right,
decided to quit. And
good going.
fortunately, the campaign was doing very well, and my wife has a really nice job as well. So I told her, I was like, I'm not going to rush to find another job. I'm just going to work on the book. And I
Hmm.
was off for a few months and just did that. It was nice. It was nice to just focus on working on the book. And I did a good chunk of the book during that time,
Hmm.
getting things done. But, financially, things come around. You got to get back and, get actual money coming through to pay the
Right.
bills. So I went back to the working force and I've just been doing the split, every time
Okay.
ever since. But the goal is absolutely to do this full time at some point, or get to the point where you could do it part time, like you're talking about. Like,
Right.
so that is absolutely the goal I'd like to get to one day.
It's definitely no matter what you do, like I said, it's the stakes here are harder and they're harsher and they're more rewarding at the same time in the indie sphere. Right before I talk this, we got some really indie guys in here joining us. I brought up Genuine Comics
Yes.
before. Double Dose of Joe, greetings everyone. And the next
There you go.
Art Bro Zaid's here, the Colonel himself. Thanks for joining us, dude. And then Bionic Bruh, definitely not your
Yes.
average Joe's here. Thank you, dude.
Good names in the chat. Good to see all you guys, all y'all
I
guys
know,
supporting.
dude. Bionic Bro, I just got your second book in the mail last week. I haven't been doing unboxings. Maybe I should do that for the channel. It might be, I can't tell if it'll be actually something that helps or just something that like is taking my time away from the book. That's what I'm always thinking about. Like,
It's
what's taking
always
the
trying to
time.
balance your time, man. I do the same thing with streaming. There are times where I'd like to stream more. I'd like to do more recorded stuff and put it up like I used to. And then every time I think about doing that, I'm like, man, it's going to take me this amount of time to record a video, then to edit a video and put it up, or it's going to take me this amount of nights where I have to take another show, which is taking time away from me drawing the book. That it's just like eventually, like the streaming is what suffers, So
Yeah, I know, right?
I just kind of stick to like I got 2 shows a week now. We're just gonna stick to that. But in my mind, I'm always like, man, I wish I could just do more with the channel. That I don't have the time to do right now.
I feel like we're on the same page there because I'm like I have like I'm committing to doing these 2 streams a week. I'm gonna try to do another video a month, like a
Yeah.
tutorial, and besides that, nothing else. I missed this. Christopher says, "Don't rub it in, Joe. I bought the hardcover of Batman versus Joker Deadly Duo." Yeah, I know because we were talking the mainstream and how the mainstream is, kind of it's lackluster. We'll say that at the very least.
It is, and there's a
Yeah.
handful of exceptions out there. That Mark Silvestri
Oh yeah.
Batman Deadly Duo was absolutely amazing, gorgeous book,
The
and
exception
yeah, it
for
was
sure.
inspiring. I love it, So absolutely, I encourage. I remember when that first came out, or when it was first finally coming out, because it was like advertised years ago, and it took Silvestri a while to get it done. And I started jumping on right off the bat when there was an actual date for it. I was like, guys, get
Hmm.
on this. And I remember I got a little bit of a pushback from the chat and from like CG and stuff because people were like so dead set against DC, blah blah blah. And I was just
Right.
like, look, I get all that. I get the whole culture war stuff, but when you get a guy like Mark Silvestri, who's an absolute living legend, he's getting old. You don't know how many more times he's going to do like an actual run on a story. And I've never seen him say anything but good stuff about the fans. That's a dude you want to
Yeah.
get out and support. It doesn't matter if it's coming out through DC. Do it, and you won't regret it. And everybody that picked that book up, even the naysayers I saw in the in the beginning that were just like, I'm not buying that book because it's DC, all changed their tune because that book came up out and it was just a breath of fresh air. It was an awesome story. The art was beautiful. And it was just a hit all around. So I have to go get
Sweet.
that hard copy at some point, Christopher.
Dude, I
I
did.
do.
I will. I only read a little bit of it in a shop. They didn't want to give me the copy. I went in there. I went one time. I rarely get to go out, and it was like I guess they counted as. I literally brought it to the counter, and they were like, "Oh, sorry, but you can't take that one. This is the store copy."
What?
Like what? I've never had that ever happen to me, and I was like, "Okay, I guess I'll just walk out empty-handed. You guys are
Wow.
crazy." Never having that. Anyway,
That's
dude,
that sucks.
yeah,
That
really
sucks, man.
bad. And ever since then, I haven't read more, but I read a little bit in the store. And obviously, when you posted about it, I think that's what got me on the train. I watched a couple of your streams, looking at some of the art, and then, dude, just you can't deny how good that the art from Sylvester, and he's only gotten better. I can't
Oh
believe
yeah.
it looks as good as it does.
Yeah.
It's pretty unbelievable. My second question that I forgot to tie in here
Yeah.
is you talked about always trying to get better, obviously in art. I'm a kind of guy that I like to study on the fly, like whatever presents the problem in the book. Say I can't draw whatever on the page, a hand in this position or whatever. I'll go break away, do some studies or whatever, look at it, try to draw it, sketch it a few different times, and then come back. But some people just like to once in a while, go take a course. Once in a
Mm.
while, look at a Gumroad tutorial or, watch a video and study separately. What kind of guy are you? Are you a guy that like works in tandem with the book and studies that way? Or what
Yeah,
kind
I'm
of
kind of
things do you
like
do?
you. If I'm yeah, if I'm struggling with something, I'll take a break on that. Like I always try to do stuff myself first, before I look at references or anything that might help. But yeah, I'm not a perfect artist. There's a lot of things I struggle with. And take time to figure things out. There are still things that throw me for a loop. Drawing hands is not fun. I don't enjoy drawing hands. They're not fun at all. And sometimes it takes a second where I'm just like, man, I'm not getting the fingers right. I'm not getting the way that I want the hand to look in this. It just looks goofy.
Hmm.
So I'll just after a while, I'll take a second, I'll take time, and I'll look at references, I'll look at how some of my favorite artists have drawn hands in different positions. I'll jump on YouTube and I'll look
Yeah.
at tutorials on hand drawing, even stuff that I've seen before. I'm just like, all right, what did I miss? You know, something needs to refresh my brain because it's not clicking from my brain to my hand. So I need to have, that refresher. And so I'll do that, but it's always as I go. I've never taken a course in drawing or a
Hmm.
class or anything like that. I've watched a ton of stuff on YouTube over the years because it's one, I like to watch other artists draw. It's
Right.
fascinating to me, and I figure I can always learn something from watching somebody draw. So I always take the opportunity if someone's like, "Hey, here's a video on someone drawing heads." I'm like, I feel like I can draw heads pretty well, but I'm gonna watch this anyway because it might be a
See their
different
approach.
technique. The way they structure things, it might be something that clicks in my brain. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Let me try that. I'll try that going forward
Yeah.
to see if that helps out. So
Yeah, dude. I obviously we're on the same page there. I think I'm also been the guy that went to go specifically. I've taken two courses, one official one, and he's one of my big inspirations. Alvin Lee. He did a
oh,
bunch of
okay, yeah,
Street Fighter. Alvin Lee is an incredible kind of like
yeah,
my style. It's like a mix between American and like Japanimation is
mm-hmm,
what people say. But that's kind of my style, and that's what I've got his original art here, and I just keep it all around me at all times. Because anyway, he had a course on schoolism a long time ago, and it cost a lot of money. And I was like, man, I'm invested. I need to like just commit, and I did it and learned a ton. And ever since then, I just look back on it and use all the skills there. And it, for some reason, I've kind of been leading into his style more than any others. I thought about this the other day, and I just realized it right now. That my other stream, the Good Joe Show on Wednesday, where I draw fan art, right? But I
yeah.
got that idea from Philip Tan, who was on your channel, saying what he
Yeah.
did to get better.
Oh, doing
Um,
the quick like 1 hour,
yeah, he said 2 hours. He
or
would
2 hours.
do,
Yeah.
yeah, he said he'd do 2 hours and try to get his finished
Yes.
product out in 2 hours. And so that's what spawned my stream, literally. Just I was like, man, I said to myself, okay, I could do it, but it would be better if I could do it on stream because then it's like a built-in accountability thing where,
Yeah.
I
It,
can
it
just do it and then not
kudos
worry
to
about
you,
it.
man. Kudos to you because drawing on stream is not always the easiest because you expose yourself because when we just reveal our finished product, people just see that and they're like, "Oh, that, like so good, great work and all that stuff." Well, a lot of times they don't see what it takes to get that done, and sometimes it can be, it can be a chore, it can be a journey to get that
And a
piece
mess.
out,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so when you go live and you're just like, I'm gonna draw something with everybody watching from start to finish. Is nerve wracking sometimes. Like I've done it before in sketches where it's not really
Mhm.
in depth. I'm not doing full body gestures. I'm doing like a sketch, like a headshot or something like that. I'm like, that's fine,
Mhm.
But like to do an entire sketch, kudos to you, man, because there are
Yeah.
times where I would just sometimes you run into speed blocks and you just kind of want to stop for a second. But when you're doing that, you're like, oh, I can't. I got to
Yeah.
work through it.
It's again, these are the two other things why I'm doing on stream because like I can't quit. People are there and will see me quit. And two,
That's right. Yeah.
I decided to give away the art every day,
Oh, that's
every
cool. Yeah.
stream. I raffle it off. So now I don't even keep the art. I'm not invested in like, oh, I drew something good. I get to keep it. No, I don't even do that. So now that's a separate thing,
That's cool.
and it's worked out that way for me. I suggest not everybody stream it, but I'm getting like it's interesting. I'm starting to see one. I'm getting better at drawing on stream, and I don't like you said, man. It's hard to do because I don't think I could even maybe a year ago I wouldn't be confident enough to do it. Not being
Right.
confident because I don't think I've gotten that much better, but just mentality wise, I think I've
Yeah.
gotten a little more open to like showing my flaws. Like you get to see me really struggle sometimes, like really like just taking an hour just on an underdrawing and still not working out by the end. But it's interesting enough. If you give the 2 hours as like a hard time, you usually come out with something that's workable and like probably would be a good commission.
The few times that I've done like Fragtober or Fraga June with Dan
Yeah.
Fraga, it was interesting because that's usually got like an hour time limit on stuff. So
Hmm.
that those were always interesting to get something out in that period of time. And there was a couple pieces that I did that I really liked, and there are a couple pieces I did that were junk, you know. So it's it just depends, I guess, on how things are flowing. I
It's
noticed when I
tough.
was working on the book, I was trying to put, time limits in my head on certain stuff. So I tried to do like I'm gonna do a page layout in a day. And when I say a day, when I had the time, my working hours were kind of like 4 or 5 hours, between everything I also do with like dropping my daughter off, picking my daughter up from school, all that kind of stuff. Where could I fit in working? And I was like, all right, I
Yeah.
can do a solid like 4 or 5 hours. And I was like, if I can lay out a page in that time and then get to, the finishing process the next day, I can knock out these pages pretty quick. And I went from back in the day taking like
Hmm.
2 weeks to draw a page, granted working full time, but still
Yeah.
taking like 2 weeks to draw a page to knocking out a full page within 3 or 4 days, depending on the detail level and number of panels and all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And a lot of that was just like, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do fast gestures, fast sketches when it comes to layout. And I do
Hmm.
everything right to the board. I don't do like the thumbnail blow ups or anything like that. I get
Okay.
right on the board. I have a loose idea in my head of how I want it to look, and I just loosely kind of go through everything and gesture stuff out, see how it
Hmm.
looks, and switch stuff up if I need to, and then start going in and fleshing it out. And I started to get really quick at doing that. I would still run
Nice.
into speed blocks where in my head looked amazing, and then when I'm getting down the concept, I'm just like,
Yeah.
it doesn't look as cool on
That
here as it
happens a
did in
lot.
here, so you do something else.
I think that's one of the most common things that happen to artists is like this like disconnect. But it's always going to look a little better in your head. Sometimes
Absolutely.
a lot better. Zayd says something funny here. The morning pee is the only mainstream I worry about.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
dude. Chris. So Arachnus is your
Yes.
character, right?
No, Arachnus is a character in the 90s by, I always forget their names, but they were a brother
Okay.
duo that it
Oh.
was independent comics in the 90s. And it was
Uh
one of
huh.
those books that just, it was always on the shelves. It was very
What was
cool.
the
Like,
title on it?
say what?
What was the title on it?
Arachnus.
Arachnus. Okay.
Yep,
Huh.
Arachnus was the name of the book,
Interesting.
and it was really cool. It was like Image kind of style art back in the day. It would have fit in very well with Image in the '90s, but it came out through, I think Mushroom Comics and Morningstar Comics. I think was what published it.
Cool.
Uh, but yeah, is a very cool indie character, and I did that on one of my shows where I showed that book off.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I'm gonna look it up now.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Zayd says Reaper D is amazing art, Joe. Always love the edge it has.
Thank you, man.
That is
Thank you.
something I would. That is actually a very edge. It's edgy. That's what I would call your book. It's edgy, um, dark and edgy, and also just it feels fun. Like no matter what, yeah, always looks like it's fun. The
There's
Don's here.
Hail Down.
One,
Good to see you. I gotta
what's up,
get
Don?
him back on the show. I had to cancel on him. Um, but everybody I canceled on over the last 2 weeks, I will get back on our show. I'll just reschedule you guys. Um, the
Bring
family
him
issues
back.
are looking better, so I should be back
Good.
to streaming next week, and then I'll reach out to rescheduling with everybody that missed the show that they're supposed to be on. But the edginess of the art,
Mhm.
I don't know if it's just style wise or feel wise that Zayd's saying, but a
Mhm.
lot of that comes from, again, my influences. Like I take a lot from the Silvestris and Stephen Platts and Finches and Cavulos and Keowans and all, Lees, Liefelds, all the guys from the 90s. I take some of them, but I
Mhm.
like specifically in my art, I'm not a big fan of like smooth edges to a lot of things. Like I like to put a little bit of a sharp edge, even on things that are organic, like clothing or muscles or stuff like that. There's sometimes where I
Mhm.
just like to give like a little bit of a sharp edge instead of that nice round smooth edge. It's just kind of something I put into my style. It just looks good to my eyes, and maybe
Mhm.
just gives like, yeah, a little bit more of that like an edgy feel to stuff. I don't know if that's what he's referring to, but I appreciate the compliment anyway.
It
Thank you.
sounds like it's along those lines because what I pull from your work when I look at your art, which we'll pull it up in a little bit. By the way, how long do you think you got? We can chat for another half hour. Is that cool?
Yeah. Yep.
Is that workable?
Sounds good to
Okay,
me.
cool. Yeah. So we'll pull it up in a little bit, but yeah, when I look at your art, it definitely. I mean, it clearly has that style. It harkens back to, the Silvestris and like we just said, but ton of artists back in the day that it definitely is reminiscent of. But yeah, just also the design. I think the character design is also like that same kind of edginess. It's you know, it's a little bit ambiguous with like how the tech works and like what is happening with his hands and
Yeah.
guns and like, and you're like, okay, there's something mysterious about it too. So there's that edge is there as well. The Don says Joe Sonntag is one of the most raw, talented indie dudes in CG. He inspires the hell out of me
Oh,
on
thank
the
you, man.
daily.
Appreciate you.
That's very,
Thank you.
very awesome to hear. So when I think about how my art works, well, that sounds weird. When I think about my art and when I think about my art and when I think about writing, they're completely different, like almost like different sides of the brain or something for
Mm.
me. Um, you know, so you wrote this book, right?
Yeah.
Or is it like inspired and you had help?
I've
Huh?
had so I overall am the writer of the book. I've enlisted help from. I had a friend for a while. I think we're still friends. I haven't talked to him in a bit, but on the book, Joel Rodriguez, who was a buddy of mine, who was actually somebody that knew me from the band days. He's a little bit younger. He's 10 years younger than me, and he used to come out to my shows, you know, and he used to like my
Right.
band back in the day and all this kind of stuff.
Cool.
And years later, he was always into comics. We never knew that because we never talked comics when we saw each other. We were always just talking music. And I used to put up. I started when I got back into drawing. I started just putting up like sketches and stuff like that. And one day he saw it and hit me up. He's like, "Dude, I never knew you were into comics." He's like, "I love writing, and I'm trying to break into the indie scene right now. We should do something together."
Mhm.
And so we kind of started. We sparked off that relationship at that point. And at one point, I was really dead set on doing Reaper Destroyer. And I don't consider myself a writer. I'm a storyteller. Yeah, I'm developing into a writer. But there were things that I didn't know about the writing medium, you know. So I hit him up, and I had read some of his stuff, some sample stuff that he had sent me, and I was really impressed with his
Mhm.
work. I was like, wow, dude. I was like, yeah, you definitely have a knack for this. I mean, I can tell you know what you're doing. I was like, would you mind coming on, helping me flesh out my ideas, and because the biggest thing I had was having a story is one thing, and then trying to figure out how to go from A to B, character development, all that kind of stuff was the thing that was really hurting me because I was like, I could go this way, I could go that way. What's the right way to go?
Right. Right.
So I'd just be stumped. Getting him on board really helped. Like, he didn't really write anything in the book. He just sat down with me and we would have Zoom meetings and he would just ask me a bunch of questions from a writer's point of view. And
Mhm.
I would send him my concepts, I'd send him my layouts for the book as far as what I was trying to do in issue 1, blah blah blah, all this, all the way through issue 4. At the time it was 6. I pared it down to 4, but and he
Mhm.
was just like, and he just asked questions like, all right, I like what you got, it's really cool, but like, why do people care about your main character?
Mhm.
It was a very simple question, and I would think about it for a second. I'd be like, I don't know. And he's like, well, think
Yeah.
about it for a
Inevitably.
second. What makes your character relatable to the reader, and why should they care about him? Why do they care about what he's going to go through in your storyline? What's the reason? And so
Mhm.
I would sit there and I'd think about that, and I'd have to kind of develop that in my head, and then I'd come up with something. I'd send it to him. I'd be like, hey, I got this idea. This should fit within what we're doing. This is a struggle he has, or this or that. And it's just, kind of stuff like that. And he'd do that in other aspects of storytelling until I was like
Hmm.
fully thinking of all these different things than just, this is the beginning, this is the end, this is the middle, this is why he is, this is the cool fight scenes that I'm going to put throughout, like all this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And he really helped me develop a storytelling to be able
So
to
what's
tell
his
that
credit on
story.
the book, would you say? What would you think is, are you crediting him in like a weird way or a thanks or something,
Uh,
I guess?
I might give him a thanks in the book.
Okay.
There were some things that happened with people
Hmm.
that was associated. CG was an issue when I joined
Okay.
CG, and that kind of was something where he didn't want to be associated with it, so he asked to be removed from the book. And so I did.
That's such a pain.
And so that was just what it was, and I told him, I was like, I'm not mad at you. It is what it is. Because
Hmm.
at the time he's building his name in indie scene. And he was really
Yeah.
worried about having his name on a book that was going to be looked at as a Comicsgate book. Even though I told him, I was like, look, this isn't a Comicsgate book. It's just, I support Comicsgate. I call myself Comicsgate, but it's an indie book. Like, I'm making comic books, like, so your
Right.
name is safe to be on here and blah, 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 whatever. Anyway, he left the book and that's what it was. But I took everything that I kind of taken from him and learned in a writing sense and then moved forward. And then I hooked up with Mark Polton, who came on primarily as my editor, but he's also obviously got a wealth of knowledge when it comes to writing. So if I ever need anything, if I'm stumped, I can just be like, hey, you know, how should I properly go from, if I want to achieve this, you know,
Hmm.
how do I get there to where it makes sense and it doesn't just seem like I'm stumbling over myself. So he's there.
Interesting.
Now, Kayla, who is my co-host on Appreciating Comic Book Art, is a great writer. She's an editor, but she's a great writer too. She doesn't have a lot of her stuff out there, but
Hmm.
phenomenal. She came on and she kind of goes through my stuff as well, and just and she'll give me like pointers here or there. But she's been one of
Yeah.
the biggest proponents of me getting better as well because she's like, hey, I see this style in your writing. You might not notice it, you know, because you don't consider yourself a writer, but I see how you do these certain things. I see how you script certain stuff. You're like, it reminds me of this, it reminds me of that. You know, she'll encourage me. She'll be like, go in that direction or look at this, you know, blah, blah, blah. And that has
She
really
has that
helped me.
outside source.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's really
Like
kind of
giving
helped
you,
me as
for
well.
sure.
So, yes, I'm the primary writer, but I have, you know, delved into a lot of help to help me get my writing to where I think it needs to be just straight up confident writing the book without anybody else coming in saying, "Hey, you should do this, you should do that."
I always love, just like you talked about, like before, about like going on YouTube and you get if someone's drawing something, it's always fun to watch them draw. I love hearing like how people are figuring out how to write, especially guys like you, because you're pretty much me. It's weird that we're both named Joe.
Yeah,
Uh, because we're both artists that move to the writing side of things, not the other way around.
right.
Um, a lot of people, what happens usually actually is a writer tries to draw, finds out it's really, really hard, and then they continue writing and figures that side of it out. But
Yeah,
an artist that actually is successful as an artist and then moves to writing, it's another thing because like you're trying to like you're working with substance rather than like just ideas. You know, you have all these designs, you have these visuals in your head,
yeah.
and now you get to work with them for real. As we're going here, Don says something great here. Take a set, share the stream, and also please like the video, subscribe to the channel because, dude, I'm telling you guys, it's skyrocketing.
Yes.
I've never had such a nice skyrocket effect. I appreciate it from everybody. We have Grey Wolf here, Grey
Hey,
Wolf Graphics. What's up, dude? I remember seeing you the other night coming here and sharing, and appreciate you watching. Don says props and love to chat and the mods, legends all. I appreciate it as well. And Admiral Wackass, you're here. What's up, dude?
yes.
Um, so along with what we just talked about, the writing stuff for me, I did it when I first started to figure out writing. I would wake up really early, like 4 in the morning,
Dang.
before work, and that's when I would do it. Like it would short circuit all my negative internal thoughts, and I would like actually just write. Wouldn't matter. It took me like 2 years straight to just like understand it. And I'm like a different for you. I think the connection and having people around and like helping you out uh, that way like really worked for you. For me, it was like I guess books were that like each book gave me a little of something. Like I would read
Gotcha.
this, take some of it, take some from another book, and yeah, it's weird because like as you're talking to your friend, the one that like would ask you a question, and then you would think like, oh, I have no clue. And that's kind of exactly what I would do with a book because a lot of these books are written as if it's talking to you. It'll be like, make sure your character has this motivation or whatever, and you'd be like, wait, what does my character? What's their motivation in the first place? And until you get that kind of question directly, you never realize it. But
Yeah.
over time, yeah, I think we both figured out some level of it, and I'm really enjoying. Dude, I'm getting better and better about structuring things. Um, Maybe a good time to really do a quick segue for Star Circuit, and then we'll swing right back into this.
Absolutely.
So Star Circuit has a new website, guys. It's literally starcircuitcomic.com. I'm going to probably put it in the chat unless a mod wants to throw starcircuitcomic.com in the chat for me. I'm going to pull up the website real quick because it's shiny and new. Uh, I was inspired by a lot of other people's websites, namely like Reenie's and Bancroft's and
Yeah.
um, several others actually. Zaid's got a really good one, and even though he's going to modify his, I pulled a lot from a lot of people's. And let me just share my screen here, and you can see maybe what I took from it here. Um, let's see. Wow, another technical hiccup with Firefox. Who knows what's happening?
It's not letting you
Um,
share.
yeah, it wants me to. It wants first permissions because I haven't done it before. So
Yeah. I ran into that issue every once in a while on Google where it would for some reason all of a sudden turn off my option to share, and I'd have to go into the settings and I'd have to click on StreamYard to allow it to do the sharing. It's really such a pain in the butt. I'm assuming it's probably something similar to that with Firefox.
yeah, it's doing something weird, but I don't even know if I can be able to share. What I'll do is not bring it up, but talk about it essentially. So go check it out. I'm going to put it in the chat. But Star Circuit, I'm moving forward to chapter 2 is the big push right now. It's a 72 page book, so much bigger than chapter 1.
Wow. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited for it. It's got a new gallery. I actually put up a free preview of chapter 1 on the website. So if you want to just try out the book, a lot of people try it and end up buying it
Nice.
because I have the special limited edition variant still available. However, that book by Kane and White and Steve Urkel cover that will not be on the new campaign. So if you want that cover, definitely go to starcircuitcomic.com. It's only $14, and jump in now. But there's a ton of other things: new synopsises, behind the scenes stuff, character bios, new art galleries, ton of things. So go check that out, dude. My favorite part about chapter 2 for me right now is like I'm upping the stakes. Like always knew the stakes would progressively get crazier because in my
Right.
book it's all about androids being better racers, and so I'm slowly introducing like how are they that crazy? And then I'm using the world and the sci-fi kind of nature of things to one confuse you and you're like, I don't know what kind of world we're in now because it's the future, and then two, like I don't know what kind of tech these things have. I'm also introducing more action elements in chapter 2, which is like androids that are not racers. The main character is kind of being chased down by android assassins, and like
Nice.
they've got a similar vibe to like they're cold and pretty much unbeatable. How do you get away from an enemy like that? So Zaid's put it up there. But besides that, guys, I wish I did not foresee for Firefox being this much of a pain. It really sucks, but at least check it out on your own time. It's been a fun time redesigning the website, and I think it looks way better, way easier to navigate too. So. While you're there, sign up for chapter 2 because that's the main thing. So how far are you through your book? Are you what's your foresee? Do you have a date or a foreseeable kind of window for release?
I'm trying to get the book out in hopefully the next few months. I had a family issue happen that
Oh
involved
man,
my dad. He's doing better now by the grace of God. He's still with us, so that's awesome.
heck
But
yeah, man.
that set me back a little bit. So we obviously haven't been working on the book at all over the last couple weeks, and just finally got back to finishing up the last few pages that need to be done. So I don't know about you, Joe, but
Mm-hmm.
I work sometimes on multiple pages at once, different stages. Some
Ooh,
might be like inked, and others might be like rough sketches and finishing and all that kind of stuff.
uh-huh.
So I've got a few, pages out there that are waiting to just have the final touches to be done, and I can send them to Dave and get them colored. But I've got one more page I need to draw, and then the book is going to be done. And I've got a couple pages I'm finishing up inking, and then everything's going to be ready to go. But the majority of the book is all colored, so I'd say
Okay.
38, 39 pages of the book are colored right now. There's a couple double page spreads that have to be colored still.
Mm-hmm.
And then hopefully we can get everything going. The supplemental book is all done. A few pages of that
Whoa.
needs to be colored, so that's all set and ready to go. So we're right there on the verge of getting this thing done, and then getting it lettered, and then hopefully pre press and all that kind of stuff, and sent out to print.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping to get that done within the next month and a half or so, and hopefully get this book out before Christmas. So maybe it'll be a good Christmas present for everybody. So
Yeah, that would be
it's
great,
right
man.
there, you
I'm
know.
I'm a backer too, so I'm looking forward to
And I
it.
appreciate it. It's a little bit longer than I thought it was going to take. You know, I mean,
Yeah, no
new
worries.
creator here, you run into things you don't anticipate running into and all this stuff. And I wanted to get it out right around that year mark in July. And it
Right.
looked good for a second that that was going to happen. And then things just, there were, you know, stuff out of your control or out of my control that just kind of happened and pushed stuff back. And, you know,
Life does happen. I know I had a couple family tragedy type of situations not too long ago, but you try to like do your best to manage life and then have the book,
yeah.
trail behind a little bit, just a little bit, as much as you can. Let it not devastate the whole timeline. But
You know, and so
yeah,
far, I mean, I haven't had really too many people hitting me up angered about it. You know, I try to be as transparent as possible, give updates on the campaign. People can come to the shows all the time. I try to talk about anything that needs to be known about the book that's pertinent changes or progression or stuff like that. You know, I have had a couple of people saying, "Hey, we're gonna get an update here or there," and I'm just sometimes like, "I just gave you an update 2 weeks ago. Just go check the update page."
yeah,
You know, like
yeah.
uh, but for the most part, people have still been on board. So I'm happy about that because one thing that worries me is about late books, and I never wanted to be put in that category of a creator that you have to worry about for late books.
Hmm.
And I understand if some people think that way because technically it's been over a year now, but I'm still hope to get this out. You know, if I get it out before the end of this year, you know, it would be a few months, 3 or 4 months past the time that I wanted to get it out, which I don't think is bad for a first creator. And then
Not at
hopefully
all. Yeah,
I'll take everything I learned from this experience into the next time and hopefully get the next book out quicker. So we'll
for
see, you
sure.
know.
I'll be. I'm changing up two things this time around. One, I'm not coloring my own book, and you're mentioning like, do I have different pages at different stages? For the most part, but I bulk them out. I don't work on multiple pages at the same time. However, they're all in pretty much. I'll bulk the layouts, bulk the pencils, and try to.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yep.
technically, right now, whatever a good chunk of the book is being perked on pencils, but the whole book is already laid out. So I try to do it that way, unless usually something comes up where like I'm throwing out this page completely, and now I have to like rearrange, and sometimes that happens. Um, but yeah, besides that, it's a similar situation to what you're describing, where like I had like with the paper shortage when I released and all this other
Oh,
stuff, the
yeah.
printer, I was like 3 or 4 months off from what I wanted to be, but it worked out. You're planning to fulfill yourself the book?
Yeah. And that's another thing, too. I mean, it'll be interesting being a first time fulfiller. You know, it's going to be me and my wife. I know there's a couple people that
Want to
have
help?
said that they would like to help. You know, like I've got a couple people that don't live too far away from me, like Rick
Cool.
Saylor. You know, you see him in the chat all the time.
Nice.
He lives probably about 4 hours away. He's like, dude, I'd love to come up for a weekend, you know, and hang out and help fulfill the book. I was like, dude, I'll take the help. You know, I'll let you know when we're gonna do it. Come on up. We'll, you know,
Uh-huh.
we'll hang out. We'll do that. You know, Jay from Desolate Soul Studios lives in Canada, but not too far away from where I live, so it's not that long of a drive.
Yeah.
He said he wouldn't mind coming up and helping. So there's going to be some outside help, but for the most part, it's probably just going to be me and my wife. And so that would be in itself, that would be a task, you know? So I can't guarantee that every single person that got a book is going to get it very quick. But once we get
Right.
going, I'm going to send them out as soon as I can. The first wave of books are going to be sent out as soon as I can and get those out there
Hmm.
so people can at least see that the book is getting out. And then, you know, again, a learning experience. So I'm sure I'll learn a
Yeah.
lot from that and I'll have a better idea next time. You know, if I want to do it
Yeah.
myself next time or if I want somebody else to do it, I don't know. You know,
You tripled my backers or something, or maybe somewhere around there. But I did fulfill it myself, and it was still a good chunk. It was like 450 or so, but it was still just me. And I think there's a downside to it that a lot of people don't see coming, which is that you're not able to work on whatever the next book, the next
right?
issue, or whatever. And so I didn't think about that beforehand. And this time around, I might actually do Critical Blast since he's leveling up like a champion over there.
Yeah.
Um, Zaid's here, the other Zaid.
Hail.
It's
Yes.
like we got two Zaids and two Joes. We need to do a JoJo Zaid stream one day.
Yeah.
Get that going. So thanks, Phil, or could be Brandon, I suppose, and behind the
Yeah,
scenes.
that's the thing I worry about with the fulfillment is just taking a step back from the creative process, because my goal was originally always to, as soon as I was done with the last page of issue one, I wanted to be starting on the next page of issue two, and
Right.
just keep on drawing, especially if you're going to try to plan a campaign so you can have artwork available, but it's like at the same point, there's going to have to be a pause for fulfillment, no matter what. So in my mind, I always thought that I would run another campaign this year, and that has since changed for multiple reasons. Besides the family issues, I've had production issues with certain people that are on the book that either left the book or had to be replaced, and that just kind of pushed back progress of the book. So, when I do the second campaign, it probably won't be until next year, unfortunately, which will be 2 years since the first book launched, which
Yeah,
sucks, but it is what it is.
that's
But it will
exactly
it will
where
allow
I'm
me to
at.
do the fulfillment, and it will allow me to do
Yeah.
enough of the book to where I can put up the art finished like I did the first time and have it ready to roll. And like I said, hopefully next time around, what I've learned this time, and I'll just tell you, I'm gonna actually have a show at some point of what I learned, through the entire process. I'm gonna have a stream about
Nice.
it, so I can help out anybody else's first timers. But just in general, my biggest thing is always have a plan in place for when something goes wrong. And
Hmm.
you know, I lost Kyle Ritter as a colorist on the book for various reasons. He had some
Various,
personal
yeah.
stuff going on, and he had to step away from the book because the original deadline I had for him to produce wasn't going to be hit. And so I went in a different direction with that. We parted on great terms. I love the dude. Did some
Hmm.
fantastic work for the book, but that was a thing. That was a setback because now I had to go find another colorist.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, I did. I found Dave Kemp, who was already working on the supplemental book, and I just moved him into the main book because I was very impressed with the stuff he was doing. We had a really good connection on what we were looking for, or what I was looking for out of the style of the book. So that was good. I also had issues where Joe Weems and Matt Bat Banning were getting really busy with all the stuff that they were doing and couldn't, keep up with what I was trying to send them. And I had to be like, all right, well, I can't delay. I can't linger on
Hmm.
these guys, even though I really want to work with these guys and fantastic stuff. I can't sit here and be like, oh, there's no problem. I'll just wait. Because when you do that, then things aren't getting done, and the people that paid money to buy your book are sitting there without the book in their hands. So you have to make the hard decision of saying, like, we just need to move forward, because the important part is getting the book to the people that bought the book. You and me can sit here and be like, man, working with this person or this person is great for us because it's like a dream kind of thing to have those people on the book. Most of the people that buy the book aren't going to see it like that. They're not going to be like, oh, this, I'm only buying the book because Joe Weems is inking your work. Like, that's probably not why you're buying the book. So
Right.
once you get over those kind of hurdles and just be like, we're going to move on. People are buying the book because they like the art, they like the character, they want the story. And if you change up here or there and it doesn't drastically change the art, it's not like going from an artist to another artist where you have a style and then a
A style
lesser
change.
style. Yeah, it's
Right.
not like that. So,
Oh man, I messed up. Sherry, Sherry goes, "Wow, I helped too." Yeah, my fiance Sherry definitely helped me fulfill.
called you
Don't leave
out.
you out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't. I didn't mean it that way. I just was just more to the point that we fulfilled like you are planning to do, and it slowed down production. I wanted to like have my second thing ready to go, and then you're like, man, it took way longer than I thought, and now like I'm like I had to get the momentum back essentially.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I worry about that
So
too because what we do is a lot based off of momentum. Like I
yeah,
really wanted like the momentum of the first campaign, which obviously is still open, but I rode that momentum for a long time. And now you feel the momentum dying off, so you want to recapture that by putting the book out, and then you want to
yeah.
capture that momentum by having another campaign ready to roll. So
Hmm.
that's what I worry about. Like, can I catch it when it needs to? Can I catch that wave of momentum for the next time the campaign's
Yeah,
going to launch? So
it's crazy. It's like man, for artists, there's like this thing where if you're not an artist and you're watching this, it's like this feeling of you're like doped up on I guess the dopamine or whatever, but of like just the the visceralness of the story. Like you can like the story is practically on the page already. It's already
yeah,
been made, but in your head. Like, but it feels so real in your head that you can't help but let it ooze out of your pencil, and just like on the page. That's kind of how it feels for me, at least. It's just like this. this thing like it's already made. All I have to do is sit at this table and it'll just happen, you know. And that's kind of how it feels, where like it's effortless. And without that kind of like momentum, you kind of have to just, it's this extra step of like psyching yourself up, like doing a little warm up, like remembering what it feels like to have like a
For
finished
sure.
piece, you know. And it happens to a lot of us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm stoked to see the finals from what you come up with. I know we're coming up on the close. I can't share your page because, again, I'll figure this out for next stream,
Yeah.
guys. Firefox, for some reason, I really would wanted to share your art, and dude, it makes it so much better when I could share things. I do have my trailer to share at the very end, so I'll at least play that. But damn, man, I really wanted to like have visuals for you. Unless you can share, is that possible?
If
Let's try that.
I'll
I,
try.
I, I don't know if
Let me
that's
see if I
gonna,
can. Whoops.
because I like to get a little visual up here just for people. Just obviously, it's been out there for a long time, but maybe, just maybe, I know I've got some new eyes in here that maybe there we go.
Oh,
Heck
okay,
yeah,
cool. I can share. There we
awesome,
go.
sweet.
So this is my campaign. This is the new art that I just dropped because I've been waiting on this, my wraparound cover for this thing to get colored for almost a year now. Kyle
Wow.
was supposed to knock this out 2 weeks after I launched, and for whatever reason, it didn't happen. But I finally got this done by Dave Kemp, who has taken over the majority of color in the book, and absolutely just killed it. I dropped this on Twitter the other day, and I was just
Yeah,
gorgeous looking. It's a gorgeous looking
and
cover.
yeah, seeing it in like a cover form is going to be great.
Yeah, yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah,
There's the dressing if it's gonna be, back, front kind of thing. But
cool.
yeah, for anybody that doesn't know me, I'm Joe Sonntag. I'm the creator of Reaper Destroyer. This is a book that it's got a '90s flavor. It's not a '90s book. It's not like a love letter to the '90s or anything like that. It's just my style kind of comes off that '90s modernized, I guess you could call it. But this is very much in the realm of the dark superheroes or the dark heroes. It's a sci-fi action adventure, a fantasy, because I've been told that a lot of my writing kind of borderlines on fantasy, writing styles. So I've thrown that in
Hmm.
there to the title of it all. This is a character I've been working on since 2007. This book hasn't been going from 2007, but I created this character back then, retooled the story, and finally putting this out. But it's about a guy who's
Nice.
trapped more or less imprisoned inside a supernatural suit of armor, inhabited by the ancient spirit of death, who's trying to consume or possess his soul. So I'll just say that it's a book shrouded in mystery. So I don't go too much into exactly what you're going to see in the first book. Once the first book's out and people read it, we can dive more into the story because I will reveal within the first issue kind of what is going on. But I've already talked so much about the book throughout the year that I'm sure I've got given too many spoilers because I'm like, I got to talk about the book. I got to talk about the story. And I probably said some
Hmm.
things I shouldn't have said. Fortunately, I'm hoping that a lot of people are in the chat haven't heard that or won't remember it by the time you actually go to read it. So it will still all be brand new to you. But this is the book right here. Samples of the
Dude,
artwork are on the page here if you guys want to check it out.
chef's
There's also a
kiss.
supplemental book with art by Oliver Isabedra, who is a absolute badass. He's one of my favorite artists in the industry right now. I just really love his work, doing a story that I wrote about Apophis. So this is the spirit of death that is possessing or trying to possess Matt. So you get a little bit of a backstory of him. Also, a story written by Kayla, who is my co-host on Appreciating Comic Book Art Live. She wrote this story. No actual nudity, but I had to throw this up here so Indiegogo wouldn't take it down. With
Right.
art by Fabio Samo, who's another just fantastic artist as well on the book. So if you guys dig it, please check that out. Supplemental and the regular book. We're going to be closing this hopefully in about a month. I pushed it back because of my dad's situation, but we're going to be trying to get this done and hopefully into people's hands fairly soon. Fairly soon.
Dude, I love hearing the pitch because I mean, again, like, you know, hearing it from the creator is totally different than like some friend that's like, yeah, you got to check out Reaper Destroyer. It's kind of like, you know, and then it just, some of it falls through, but hearing it from the
Right.
creator's mouth themselves, like you get the vibe, you get just something else comes through. I don't know how else to describe it, but it's cool to hear you skip the pitch. Um, Obviously I'm a backer guy, so anybody out there who's watching the channel, I know there's a bunch of you, that are more normies than streaming kind of chat dwelling people. And you guys who like comics, let's just say you like books that are in the mainstream, and you're watching my channel, this is probably one to check out because it's going to be, it's inspired by, you know, a lot of books that were technically mainstream back in the day. They were more indie, but the
Right.
90s
Yeah.
style at least was a mainstream thing at one point. And yeah, we're both artists, respect art above anything else. I'd say that's both of our opinions on that matter. And so, yeah, man, it's been fun. I really want to like have another conversation because I've told like I didn't even get to the list of real questions. The questions that I really wanted to like talk about were more life based. Like we started with the fight
Yeah.
and the question about fighting and you know, to me, it was like a very interesting approach to interviews that I want to continue. And I want to have you back on to ask these other questions.
Absolutely.
Maybe one, maybe we just ask one, something like, let's just say if, if there was a good chunk of time that you had outside of doing this book, what would you be doing? Like, or what hobbies are you pulling off these
Oh,
days?
I'd absolutely be doing more stuff in music. People know my background. I was in a band for a number of years, a good decade of my life from my 20s into my 30s. And I have a great passion for playing music, writing music, performing music. Uh, and so, yeah, if I wasn't doing a comic and certain circumstances were different, I'd probably be doing more music related stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I did. I used to be. I had a band at one point as well, just like a really small one. We just had one little EP and one little played around town and around the surrounding cities. So nothing big, but like enough where I got a flavor of what performing on some things was like. So I can relate slightly there. And I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that really love music. So I appreciate that. So you're like an artist through and through. Your
Oh,
other side
absolutely.
things are
Yeah.
art. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Different kinds. It's funny too because I do believe that the music scene because I was a frontman lyricist of the band and stuff. So
Oh,
I
cool.
always kind of looked at that as writing stories, right? So a lot of my approach to writing comic books have kind of come from the music realm where it's similar aspects. I'm just writing in a different way now for comics than I did for music, and music is a little bit more poetry kind of base with the way that you can rhyme and do all this kind of stuff, but you still try to tell a story within your song or whatever you're trying to portray the song to be. So I
Right.
kind of brought that into my writing. And if when people read this book, you may or may not see like I'm not a traditional. My writing style is not going to be traditional. It's just who I am as a writer. It's how I script. I base a
Hmm.
lot of things off of movies and TV series more than I do comic books because that's just what inspires me as far as storytelling goes.
Hmm.
But yeah, music has always been a huge part of my life. Probably always will be. One day I'll probably get a little bit more into it. But right now I'm
Interesting.
just super focused on getting the book out and growing my
You,
company.
you ever think you'll the same here? The company, the Joes are going to come take over the world with this company
Yes.
stuff. So I was going to say, um, actually, I almost just lost it. What was I going to say? Companies. Well, either way, he says your music is sick as fuck, dude. That's awesome. I
Thank you,
figured it
brother.
was you and not me.
Thank
That's
you.
hilarious. Um,
uh, you said, have you ever
Sweet.
considered?
Oh, have you ever considered doing a comic like specifically about a band, kind of like Aerith is doing over there? He's got like a band type of band. I'm actually doing a side project band comic right now.
I
Um,
actually I haven't because it's not the in the realm of comic book storytelling. It's not what interests me.
mhm.
Even if I was able to tie it within something, because I'll tell you right now, I've never been a big fan of like the secret identities or uh, other lives of characters. In certain stories when you read them and stuff that works, but as far as when I'm telling a story, I never wanted to have to worry about what does this character do when he's not this character. So I just created a character that this is the character's life, almost like Spawn,
Right.
right? Spawn doesn't have a secret identity or a side life from when you spawn. Same thing with the
Mhm.
darkness. It's just
Right.
you throw these characters into the situation, and this is their life now, and they have to deal with it. So we see their life. It's probably just because I'm bored. Like I don't want to think of like, all right, Peter Parker. How does it affect his life? Romantic life. Jobs, all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. It's just not my style of writing or what interests me. So that would probably be the only reason why I wouldn't approach that aspect of it.
Interesting. Yeah, I a lot of my books are not superhero based or not vigilante based. One day I do want to do my favorite of those are detective style ground level, Batman,
Mm,
Daredevil, Robin. Those are my kind of peeps. If I was going to do a superhero story, it would be ground level style stuff. I'm
yeah.
a big fan of all the run, Batman Year One, anything pretty much, uh, you know, in that realm. I'm
Yeah.
really into, but. Uh, Outside of that, I'm really sci-fi. Dude, I didn't think about it till afterward, but like all my stuff is all sci-fi oriented. Even when I write like a story about something like superheroes or something about racing, it turns out it's sci-fi. It turns out it's always
Right.
it's always got that circuitry element to it.
Well, it's just a
And
fun genre to play
yeah.
around in. Like I thought this book was really a sci-fi, book when I was writing it, and it
Hmm.
wasn't until like people like Kayla who would read the script and I tell her more. I go in depth about what the book is and what the story is and what I'm doing, and she was the first person to tell me that yeah, it's got the sci-fi elements, it's got some horror elements, but she's like it's really got a lot of fantasy elements within
Hmm.
the book, like just how fantasy writing is and just how I've built my
Right.
world and everything. And I never thought about it until she brought it up, and I was like, oh, I guess you're right. Just kind of what I'm doing within the book, storytelling, uh, with because I, I I like world building. So J.R. Tolkien,
Hmm.
the Game of Thrones dude was George Martin, all
Yes.
that stuff. I like how someone builds a world from and creates their own mythology, and I wanted to do something with this book that kind of created my own mythology, but still fits within a version of the real world, but changed it a little bit with my mythology within it, and it goes back from the beginning of time. And this book could span to the end of time, and I have immortal characters and I have all this stuff, so we can jump back and forth to different realms, to different times, as we progress the story. Now, not all of that's going to be in the first issue. I always have to
Right.
tell people that because I've talked a lot about my world. The first issue
Hmm.
is a setup, it's character, all that kind of stuff. But eventually, there is so much of the world that I've created, including ages of time, that I would like to dive into at some point when we go into the future. And that's why Kayla's like, it's really kind of fantasy. You got a lot of fantasy elements within your story writing.
Yeah, that sounds like a definite link there. Like I think fantasy it brings with themes with it too. So I'm hoping that comes to fruition. You get to see more and more of what you got outside of the direct story, I'd say, or get to play with at least the bounds and the scope of it. That would be fun. Everybody says they can't wait. Obviously, Christopher, big fan. Can't wait to read it, and definitely in good company. Yes,
Good company.
that's usually I need to have a good last question about good company, but yeah, it's always that's my favorite part about the pun. There is just that it's always I not only interview people that I respect, but also that I think are going to be good company, and I think it has been good company. Um,
Yes, sir.
I had a blast, man. I have again more questions, just random other things outside of comics and stuff that I want to ask, and we'll just save them for next time. Um, but yeah, have a great one. We on this channel, I'm doing like I said a tutorial a month, so that's coming. I'm doing a hand tutorial. I'll have to link Bancroft to that. Um, and so, besides the tutorial, I'm going to be streaming Wednesdays 6:30, Sundays around 1ish, depending on who's coming on. But I got a list of people coming on. And what's going on with you this week? Where can people find you, and what do you have coming up?
Well, you can find me on any of the social medias under Joe Sonntag or Joe M. Sonntag. I'm primarily on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it now. I've got my own YouTube channel under Joe M. Sonntag. You can check me out there. I stream on Tuesdays at 9:30 and Wednesdays at 8:30. I will be returning to streaming this week. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do on Tuesday. I don't know if we're going to look at our normal comic book art. I do want to give an update on my family situation on that show, and then just thank all the outpouring of support that I got over this last couple weeks from everybody has been absolutely incredible. So I want to make sure that I address that, and then I'll see. I'll try to figure out something to look at. But we're gonna ease back into streaming this week and get rolling. So Tuesdays and Wednesdays, come hang out for some good comic book art and comic book creator talk on the two shows. Art and Stuff is the Wednesday show. That's with Sean
Mhm.
Arendt, my co-host, and then Appreciating Comic Book Art is our Tuesday show. And as far as that, go check out Reaper Destroyer if you haven't. We'll be closing it hopefully soon and getting that ready to rock and roll. But I know we got some announcements coming up for some things that we want to due for the ramp up of the closeout of that. So just stay tuned to my social media and my YouTube channel for more info.
Yeah, awesome. On that, guys, the descriptions for backing Reaper and your channel is actually in the description of the video.
Thank you.
So, guys, just click those links, hit them up, subscribe, spread the eyeballs, and spread the wealth of attention out to everybody in the. Dude, we're a small industry. There's no reason why you can't follow everybody in
True.
comics. Straight up. Speaking of, Peter's here. What's up?
Peter.
You made it for the very end, dude.
What's going on,
I appreciate it. And Joe, sorry to hear about your dad. I'm glad you're getting back to streaming.
Thank you.
And I hope that we do another one of these good companies, or maybe I'll come on your channel or another time.
Yeah,
just
we'd
talk
love to get you back on,
somewhere.
man. It's been a while since we had you on our show, so we'll have to schedule
yeah.
that, get you on.
I'll have. I'm about to play the trailer for Star Circuit 2, so maybe we can talk about that and just who knows, any other topics that come up. But thanks everybody for joining me. We'll see you next time. It's Wednesday, 6:30. I'll be drawing fan art and hopefully doing some awesome work. All right, peace out, everybody.
See you guys.